Hello guys, now we are in the fifth game in the strategy of the center. The game is played between Stolberg and Botvinnik in Moscow 1940. The game goes d4, knight f6, c4 e6, knight c3, bishop b4, e3, and then castle shot, bishop d3, d5, knight g e2. Now c5 by black. Black decides to crush the white pawn center immediately with dc4 and bishop c4. Here instead of c5, d takes c4, and after bishop takes c4, c5 was also very solid. Now castle shot, and then knight to c6, cd5 and ed5, and now a3. Here instead of ed5, knight takes d5, then after knight takes d5 and queen takes d5, a3, bishop a5 and queen c2. White attacks both pawns on c5 and h7. So here e takes d5 was correct, and a3, cd4. Now ed4. If at all a takes b4, then d takes c3 and b takes c3, and knight to e5 gives comfortable play to black. White will dominate the d4 square, but on the other hand, black you can use the square c4 and e4. But in the game, white played e takes d4. Now bishop to d6. Now h3. Here bishop f4 was a logical move, finishing development and exchanging a bad bishop for a good one. Instead, white made his white bishop a worse piece. Now after h6, and then b4, white wanted to secure a spot for the queen on b3. Advancing pawns on the queen side misses its mark. In open positions, pawn play is rarely promising. So now rook e8, queen b3, bishop e6, bishop d2, queen d7. Black harmoniously finished development and is already better. The idea of last few moves is the exchange of the light squared bishops. Now f4. This is a suicide. One is not allowed to play on the flank if worse off in the center. Also attacking the black king is just an illusion. The f4 pawn is restricting the rook, bishop and the knight. And now the e4 and e3 are now desperately weak squares. Now bishop f5, queen c2, bishop e4, b5. The game is over now. White invites so many black pieces into his camp. The knight goes to c4 along with future invasions on the c and e files. White is without counterplay. With careless advances, white simply gave black full control over the center. Bishop takes d3, queen takes d3, knight a5, knight g3, knight c4, bishop c1, Here knight takes d5 is not good, because after knight takes d5, queen takes, and then knight e3. After bishop takes, then rook takes on e3. Things are bad for white. There is no good place for the knight to retreat, and black will keep the initiative with rook c8. So bishop c1 was good, and rook a c8. White cannot oppose the black's occupation of the light squares. His position is hopeless. Now rook a2, bishop f8, supporting the d5 pawn and freeing the d6 square for the knight. Now a4. This leaves the b4 square without control. Now bishop b4. Now the e4 square will be easier to control after the exchange. Now knight d1, knight e4, f5, knight takes g3, queen takes g3, bishop d6, queen f3, bishop e7, queen g3, bishop f6, bishop takes h6. Now bishop takes d4 check. The pawn on d4 is more important than h6. See how black invades on the central squares. Very soon a storm will break out. Now king h1, f6, bishop c1, rook e4, queen d3, knight e5. If you follow games of such great masters, chess looks very simple. Dominate the center and you will dominate the game. Now queen b1, rook c4. Black used his last move to achieve full centralization. Now a5, bishop c5, b6, a6, knight b2, rook c3, bishop d2, rook b3, queen c2, queen b5, rook c1, bishop f8, rook d1, rook e2. Dominating the center gives you excellent prospects on both the flanks. Botvinnik chooses the fastest way. He attacks the white's king. Now rook queen c1, rook takes h3, g takes h3, and now d4. A sad fate for white. Paralyzed pieces in open position. There is no way to prevent queen d5 with mate, so white resigned here. In the game, white recklessly advanced pawns. He invited black's pieces to a comfortable central positions. The realization of a big positional advantage should be carefully studied, and it depicts Botvinnik's impressive technique. So thank you all.